The Treaty of Utrecht, which established the Peace of Utrecht, is a series of individual peace treaties rather than a single document, signed by the belligerents in the War of the Spanish Succession, in the Dutch city of Utrecht in March and April 1713. The treaties between several European states, including Spain, Great Britain, France, Portugal, Savoy and the Dutch Republic, helped end the war. The treaties were concluded between the representatives of Louis XIV of France and of his grandson Philip V of Spain on one hand, and representatives of Anne of Great Britain, Victor Amadeus II of Sardinia, John V of Portugal and the United Provinces of the Netherlands on the other. They marked the end of French ambitions of hegemony in Europe expressed in the wars of Louis XIV, and preserved the European system based on the balance of power. Negotiations. The War of the Spanish Succession was occasioned by the failure of the Habsburg king, Charles II of Spain, to produce an heir. In fact, the Habsburgs were prone to pedigree collapse, and this shows in the appellation given to Carlos II, El Hegazado, and in portraits of the kings, like those by Diego Velázquez and Juan Carreño de Miranda. Dispute followed the death of Charles II in 1700. And 14 years of war were the result. France and Great Britain had come to terms in October 1711, when the preliminaries of peace had been signed in London. The preliminaries were based on a tacit acceptance of the partition of Spain's European possessions. Following this, the Congress of Utrecht opened on the 29th of January 1712, with the British representatives being John Robinson, Bishop of Bristol, and Thomas Wentworth, Lord Strafford. Reluctantly, the United Provinces accepted the preliminaries and sent representatives, but Emperor Charles VI refused to do so until he was assured that the preliminaries were not binding. This assurance was given, and so in February the imperial representatives made their appearance. As Philip was not yet recognized as its king, Spain did not at first send plenipotentiaries, but the Duke of Savoy sent one, and Portugal was represented by Luis d'Acunha. One of the first questions discussed was the nature of the guarantees to be given by France and Spain that their crowns would be kept separate, and matters did not make much progress until after the 10th of July 1712, when Philip signed a renunciation. With Great Britain and France having agreed upon a truce, the pace of negotiation now quickened, and the main treaties were finally signed on the 11th of April 1713. Principal provisions. The treaty recognized Louis XIV's grandson Philip, Duke of Anjou, as King of Spain, thus confirming the succession stipulated in the will of the Charles II of Spain, who died in 1700. However, Philip was compelled to renounce for himself and his descendants any right to the French throne. In similar fashion, various French princelings, including most notably the Duke of Berry and the Duke of Orleans, renounced for themselves and the descendants any claim to the Spanish throne. Utrecht marked the rise of Great Britain under Anne and later the House of Hanover. Her exploits martial were due to Marlborough. The lucrative trading opportunities afforded to the British were gained at the expense of her allies, with the Dutch foregoing a share in the Asiento, and the Holy Roman Empire ceding Spain to Philip V and being forced to reinstate the Elector of Bavaria. The Spanish territories in Europe were apportioned. Savoy received Sicily and parts of the Duchy of Milan, while Charles VI received the Spanish Netherlands, the Kingdom of Naples, Sardinia, and the bulk of the Duchy of Milan. Portugal had its sovereignty recognized over the lands between the Amazon and Oiapoque rivers, in Brazil, In 1715, the Portuguese also recovered Colonia de Sacramento, previously taken by Spain in Uruguay. In addition, under Article 10 of the treaty, Spain ceded Gibraltar and Minorca to Great Britain and agreed to give to the British the asiento, a monopoly on the oceanic slave trade, to the Spanish colonies in America. In North America, France ceded to Great Britain its claims to Newfoundland and to the Hudson's Bay Company territories in Rupert's Land. They also ceded the Acadian colony of Nova Scotia. The formerly partitioned island of St. Kitts was also ceded in its entirety to Britain. France was required to recognize British suzerainty over the Iroquois, and commerce with the Far Indians was to be open to traders of all nations. France retained its other pre-war North American possessions, including Isle Saint-Jean, Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, as well as Isle Royale, on which it erected the fortress of Louisbourg. A series of commercial treaties were also signed. After the signing of the Utrecht treaties, the French continued to be at war with Emperor Charles VI and with the Holy Roman Empire itself until 1714, when hostilities were ended with the treaties of Rastatt and Baden. Spain and Portugal remained formally at war with each other until the Treaty of Madrid of February 1715, while peace between Spain and Emperor Charles VI, unsuccessful claimant to the Spanish crown, came only in 1720 with the signing of the Treaty of The Hague. The treaty, which resulted from a British separate peace, ruined Britain's reputation with their allies. It also effectively bought the Allies 2 more years of war, which could have easily been won if Britain had stayed the course and refrained from dismissing the Duke of Marlborough from all his posts. It further served to eclipse the Tories in Parliament once George I ascended the throne. Responses to the treaties. The treaties' territorial provisions did not go as far as the Whigs in Britain would have liked, considering that the French had made overtures for peace in 1706 and again in 1709. The Whigs considered themselves the heirs of the staunch, anti-French policies of William III and the Duke of Marlborough. However, in the Parliament of 1710 the Tories had gained control of the House of Commons, and they wished for an end to Great Britain's participation in European war. Queen Anne and her advisers had also come to agree. The party in the administration of Robert Harley and the Viscount Bolingbroke proved more flexible at the bargaining table and were characterized by the Whigs as pro-French. Oxford and Bolingbroke persuaded the Queen to create 12 new Tory peers to ensure ratification of the treaty in the House of Lords. Although the fate of the Spanish Netherlands in particular was of interest to the United Provinces, Dutch influence on the outcome of the negotiations was fairly insignificant, even though the talks were held on the territory. The French negotiator Melchior de Polignac taunted the Dutch with the bon mot de vous, chez vous, sans vous, meaning that negotiations would be held about you, around you, without you. The fact that Bolingbroke had secretly ordered the British commander, the Duke of Ormond, to withdraw from the Allied forces before the Battle of Dinant, and the fact that they secretly arrived at separate peace with France was a fait accompli, made the objections of the Allies pointless. In any case, the Dutch achieved their condominium in the Austrian Netherlands with the Austro-Dutch Barrier Treaty of 1715. The peace, such as it was between European powers, was to endure until the onset of the 7 Years' War, ostensibly started by contention between Britain and France over North America. This war was concluded by the Treaty of Paris in 1763. Balance of power. The European concept of the balance of power, first mentioned in 1701 by Charles Davant in Essays on the Balance of Power, became a common topic of debate during the war and the conferences that led to signing of the treaties. Boosted by the 19th of April 1709 issue of Daniel Defoe's A Review Review of the Affairs of France, a periodical that supported the Harley ministry. The concept was a key factor in British negotiations, and was reflected in the final treaties. This theme would continue to be a significant factor in European politics until the time of the French Revolution. Bibliography: Churchill, Winston, Marlborough, His Life and Times, BK, 2 vols. Ian Amp, IV. University of Chicago Press. ISBN 0-226-106357. Gregory, Desmond. Minorca, The Illusory Prize, A History of the British Occupations of Minorca between 1708 and 1802. Lynn, John A. The Wars of Louis XIV, 1667–1714. Longman, ISBN 0-582-05629-2. Sichel, Walter, Bolingbroke and His Times, 2 vols. Volume 1. The Reign of Queen Anne. Stanhope, Philip, History of England, comprising the reign of Queen Anne until the Peace of Utrecht. Trevelyan A. M. England under Queen Anne, 3 volumes. Longmans, Green and Co.